Hi there, my name's Ellie and I work at Manchester Metropolitan University. Norman's asked me to talk through one of my workshops that I analysed through the lens of a creative learning ecology recently. The workshop itself I ran last June in the Festival of Learning and Teaching that MMU ran, and it was about getting members of staff to use video in their teaching more. The idea of the workshop was that I would have multiple types of video usage available for members of staff to try out. I set up the room so that there were 4 different tables. One had a video camera, one was to do with sharing tools like YouTube and things like that. There was one for open tools and apps, and a table for video editing or tools that one could get on a work laptop. And the idea is that everybody would try these out in round robin style. I knew that I wanted to make the workshop quite interactive and engaging. Rather than me present lots of different ways of using video, I wanted people to actively try things out for themselves. So in that way I felt that the workshop was quite creative. And that was one of the reasons why I chose to look at it as part of the Creative HE conversation last November. Here are some photographs from the workshop. Essentially you can see people went round in pairs or threes usually, and on each table they would find activity cards that had suggested activities that they could do. All the while I was getting them to write down ideas that they had that they could use in their teaching and jot that down on a piece of paper, so as they moved around they got to see other people's ideas as well. So for the Creative HE conversation on creative learning ecologies last November, I selected this workshop as a kind of little case study for myself to see how I could apply it in my own practice. And what you can see here is the diagram that I came up with. I originally added the image and these purple comments here, trying to identify what was contained inside my learning ecology. So the context was academic development in higher education at my institution, and the purpose was to give people a different experience of using video and for them to consider the student experience. So they themselves were learners in the workshop. How did it feel to be asked to use those kind of technologies? And hopefully we'd bring some of that back into the workshop itself. So you can see that for each of the aspects of the creative ecology model, I tried to identify what was present in my workshop. I then shared that online and received further comments, and you can see the red comments around the edge that indicate where other people identified potential gaps. When I went through the process of mapping this workshop onto this model, I realised that it wasn't necessarily a creative learning model. It could be anything. It wouldn't need to necessarily be a creative workshop that I was mapping onto it. So what I decided to do was try and identify the sites of creativity within the workshop. So you can see here I highlighted those in yellow, areas where I felt that creativity was being encouraged. And I found that coupled together with the comments that I received from colleagues taking part in the conversation and the process of mapping my workshop onto this model really helped me understand sort of the different sites where I was trying to facilitate creativity and perhaps some sites where I hadn't. So I was surprised in a way that some of the content wasn't creative, and I was sort of able to notice patterns in what I was doing. So in this particular instance, the purpose was, I think, creative, and what I wanted people to achieve was in some way creative. The processes that I wanted them to go through were creative. But there were other sites of creativity that were going on, so I wanted to use the space to enhance the creativity. and I wanted to. Some of the resources that I'd made were quite creative, and some of the resources that were naturally available, such as empathy for students, I wanted to incorporate that, and I think in a way those things are quite creative too. And so by doing this, I've kind of been able to be more consciously aware of those things. And I think that for my future work, I think this could be quite an interesting way of trying to identify potential areas for development. So overall, I would say that by doing this, it's been quite a reflective process, but also really valuable to have had feedback from other people from around the world on my workshop. And that's it really. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you.